So here we are in Phoenix Code, and I'm going to start building a project. I already have a project here that I created from the last video, but just to review what was done there. If I want to create a brand new project, then there is a folder with a little plus sign up here. When I highlight over it, it says Start Project. So I'm going to click on that icon. I want to build out a project in HTML5, so I'm going to select this icon over here. And in here I have two fields that I need to enter in. The first is the location, or rather the second one is location. And this is the folder that's going to contain my whole project. So I'm going to click over here. I'm going to select my desktop and I'm going to hit select folder down here. And then the first one that I have is the project name. This is going to create the root directory for my project. I'm going to call this HTML2tut for short, and then hit create project. And from here, while I'm using Phoenix Code, it's already created some files for me. This is index.html, this is script.js, and this is styles.cs. That's a benefit that I have from Phoenix Code and selecting that HTML5 project. But regardless of where you're coding, let's say you were coding in some other application, you may not have these files already generated with all this boilerplate code already here. So we're just going to go in and show how we would create this from scratch. From most of the code editors that I've seen, they all have a similar feature for creating files and folders. So I'm going to just clear all this stuff out and we'll start off from scratch. If you had that because you're using Phoenix Code, you don't have to do this step. I'm just showing how you would go about doing this if you created that folder and it was empty. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say new file, and I'm going to call this index.html. And then I could step and repeat that for new folders and new files and create my structure. You can see the last video for more information on that. So with just this, I'm going to clear this whole thing out just to build this up from scratch. Another thing that I want to point out is what we're doing over here is actually creating files and folders inside of this computer. So if I go into my file explorer and I navigate to my desktop, I now see that I have a folder called HTML_tut, and when I open that up, I have index.html. So that is the exact same structure as what we're seeing over here. This is my root directory, and inside that root directory I have a file called index.html. I'm going to switch over to the project that I created in the first video. So if you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend that you do. So that was on my desktop, and that one was called HTML tutorial. Select that folder, and here we are. Okay, I'm going to start off with the boilerplate HTML code that we just went over. So it starts off with doc type HTML, and then I have an HTML element over here, and Phoenix Code is doing some work for me over here where it's automatically adding in the closing tag. So inside of here, this is where the rest of my code is going to be, and the rest of my code is going to be cut up into these two tags, the head tag and the body tag. Inside of head, I'm going to create one tag called title, and I'm going to call this my first site. And inside the body tag, I'm going to create an H1. So I'm creating tabs the deeper that I go into my HTML. So over here, I have the HTML tag. Head is a child of that HTML element. So for that, I'm just going to tab in once. And then since title is a child of head, I'm going to tab in again. This isn't for your browser's purposes. This is so that it's easier to see the relationships between your elements, and it makes it a little bit easier to find things, especially when our code becomes hundreds of lines long. Over here for the H1, I'm just going to write welcome and exclamation point. I have the index file over here under working files. This is just showing all the files that I have open. So you can see over here, if I open up about.html, it shows up on this list, and then I could close it down. Right next to index.html, you'll see this little bullet. That little bullet is telling you that this document hasn't been saved yet. So I'm going to go and save it. So file save, or Control S. And now that it is saved, you can see that that bullet has disappeared. So that's a good check to see whether or not you have actually saved your changes since the last time you saved. And you can see over here, as soon as I add a space in this area, that little bullet returns, and then I save it again, and then the bullet goes away. Another benefit to Phoenix Code is that Phoenix Code automatically comes with a live preview. So there's a little lightning bolt over here on this side, and if I select it, I get to see my web page over here. here. And the cool thing about this is that if I were to do something like that and make changes, I will see those changes automatically, even though I haven't saved the file yet. So I'm gonna undo that, and I could come over here and say hello all, for example. And you can see that as I'm editing my code, it's showing me the updates over here. It's also doing some other stuff, like you can see these orange bars in the top and the bottom, and there's also a little highlight around the wording. That's just to show me what the structure is as far as like spacing and margins and all that stuff. And we'll see that more when we dive into CSS. If you are working in another code editor, you may not have this feature for live preview. In that case, as soon as you are ready to test your code, you want to see what this looks like on the browser. Then you want to make sure that your file is saved. So in this case, there's no bullet here. I could go to File and Save just to make sure that everything is great. And then I'm going to go to my browser. So while I'm in my browser, I could hit Control O or Command O if you're working off of Mac. And I'm going to go in and select this file. So this is index.html. I'm going to hit Open, and there it is. And just to make sure that this is working, I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to say hello everyone, save that down. Then I need to come over to my browser. And then once I'm here, it still says hello all. And that's because I already made that request to get that index file, but I haven't refreshed it since I made that change. So I'm going to come over here to the reload button. I'm going to hit reload, and now I get to see the update. So in the last video, we were talking about client and server. In this case, because it's HTML and because it's stored on this machine, I don't need to have a server at this point. The only person that's able to see this file is myself because it's on this machine. But if I want it to be available online, then that's when I'll need the server. As far as the browser is concerned, it just knows that it gets to read HTML, so it's fine with that. It doesn't matter where the file is coming from. I can come in here and I could find a file, an HTML file that's stored on this machine, and request for the browser to open it up, and it'll open it up just fine. When we dive into backend languages, we'll see the need for a server in those cases. But for this case, for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we could program our web pages locally and open them up directly into the browser to see what the end result will be. So here in Phoenix Code, I've written out this HTML from my slide deck. We have doc type, HTML, here's head, here's body. Inside of head, we have a title tag. Inside of body, we have our H1. And if we were to open up this page inside the browser, we would see this. So the word welcome is inside the body tag, so that is displaying inside the web page. The words my first site, which exists inside the title tag, is showing up over here inside the tab. So just to change this, I'm just going to say my company. And over here, I will write hello all, save this document down, come over here, refresh my page, and you can see that the tab in Chrome now says my company, and the text inside of the web page now reads as hello all. Just to demonstrate that all web pages use the same structure, I have open over here YouTube, ESPN, and Instagram, the login page for Instagram. And if I go in and I take a look at the source code over here, I'm going to go to inspect, just going to move this to the side. What I'm looking at over here is the code that makes up our web page. And if I click on these arrows over here to collapse these elements, you can see that the code that's being used to compose this page starts off with a doc type HTML. Then we have an HTML element with a whole bunch of attributes. And then inside of that element, the HTML element starts up here, closes down here. And inside of there, we have head and body. Let's take a look at ESPN. So here's ESPN. I'm going to do the same thing. Go to inspect, come up here. We are starting off with doc type HTML, followed up by an HTML element. And then inside of that HTML element, we have head and body. Now jumping over to Instagram, we're going to go to inspect. Looking at the HTML breakdown, we have doc type, followed by an HTML element that closes down here. Inside of this element, again, we have head and body. All modern websites have the same structure that we've established with our boilerplate. Next up, we'll take a look at the text elements from the H1 down to the paragraph. I'll see you there.